Good morning. Welcome to our monthly team meeting. My name is Virginia Forsyth, and I will be the new customer service manager. I've worked with many of you before, but some of you I may have not met yet, and I wanted to use this meeting to introduce myself and to discuss some emotional intelligence techniques and the policies that we will be implementing to help engage our emotional intelligence. Before coming to this meeting, I asked you all to take a few moments to complete the VIA Character Strengths Assessment to learn what your 5 strengths are. Now, you don't need to share yours aloud with everybody, but I wanted to share mine just so that you knew some of my strengths. Obviously, I have weaknesses just like everybody else, but these are some of my strengths. And I also wanted to share a small, funny little anecdote just so you can get to know me a little bit better. So something about me is I am terrified of chickens. And this is the story about why I am so afraid of chickens. I was born in the Midwest, Michigan to be specific. And if you've never been to Michigan, it is very cold. I grew up near the coast of Lake Michigan, where in general we would see about 100 inches or more of snow a year. So just to put that into perspective, that's a little more than 8 feet a year, and that's a lot of snow. So I am not a baby when it comes to weather, but the year after I graduated high school was one of the worst winters I have ever seen. The week before Christmas, we received 3 inches of ice overnight. That's a lot of ice if you've never seen what an inch of ice on stuff looks like. The power lines began to fall, and the entire state lost power anywhere between 5 days and 3 weeks. The entire state of Michigan, completely out of power. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, so my house was definitely pushing it towards the 3 weeks side of things. We were like one of the last people to get our power back. But during one of those weeks, I was house sitting for a friend who was on a cruise for Christmas, and their family did 4-H. And so they had 30 chickens-ish, you know. And since there was no power, they had no heat in their chicken coop. Their water heater kept refreezing, so they had no fresh water, and their food also kept refreezing because they didn't have any heat. And the electricity was what was keeping that heat on. So, as you can probably imagine, it was a bit of a bloodbath. Of the 30 chickens in the coop, 25 of them died, and the living 5 resorted to cannibalism when the food froze over. To keep the coyotes away from the remaining living chickens, at night I had to dispose of the chickens somewhere away from the remaining chickens. So I had to pick up a bunch of dead chicken carcasses, move them far enough away that coyotes wouldn't be attracted to the chicken coop. It was a nightmare. And just to put a cherry on top of all of that, halfway through the week, a tree fell on the fence, keeping them enclosed in the chicken coop. So luckily, they were very cold and didn't really want to go anywhere. But if they had decided they wanted to break out, they most definitely could have. It was a nightmare on all accounts, and that is why I am terrified of chickens. In our monthly meetings, we will be tackling one of the core company values of our company's mission statement and breaking it down. This month, we'll be discussing respect. There are 3 pieces of respect that we'll be talking about today. The first one, obviously, is self-respect. That's kind of where all respect starts, is to respect yourself. You all have lots of knowledge, you know lots of things, especially working in customer service. I know more than a lot of you that you know just about everything about this company. And you should know that you know a lot about this company. When a customer calls and they are asking you for advice or they want to know about our products or our prices, you're the one that they're going to talk to. And you should know those things, and you do, and that's great. So respect starts with yourself. Know that you have a lot of knowledge and you can share that knowledge. The second piece is respect for your peers. So you guys know lots of things. That means that your coworkers also know lots of things. They may know different things. They may know some of the same things. But in essence, we all have different life experiences. And if we work together, you'd be surprised how much you can accomplish just by respecting your peers and listening to their opinions when they have them. And the final piece of respect, which is definitely important to me in this new leadership role, is respect for and by authority. most people know, I don't need to tell you this, that your boss should be respected. You already know that. But a lot of bosses forget that their team also deserves respect. It's kind of a you catch more flies with honey than vinegar type of situation. Um, Fostering an environment of mutual respect creates a better environment for everyone, right? Think of all the ways that you interact with customers, coworkers, superiors, yourself, and think if you were fostering respect with all those interactions, what could you accomplish? Probably a lot. So we'll be continuing to foster respect in all of our interactions. Starting this month, we'll be implementing a new monthly self-assessment protocol. Every month you will get a little form, and it will take 2 or 3 minutes to fill out, and then it will be an opportunity for you to reflect on what has happened this month. What went well, what didn't go as well, give you an opportunity to brag about yourself a little bit if you accomplished something big. When you accomplish something you're proud of, tell us about it. We can't be everywhere all the time, and we don't want to miss it when you do something great. So tell us about it. In addition, at the end of every evaluation, there will be a space for you to ask any questions. You can ask me questions, you can ask the group questions. They will all be addressed at next month's meeting. So when you fill out your self-evaluation at the end of the month, we'll talk about all those questions at this meeting next month. Of course, if at the end you want to ask me personally any questions, you can ask them anytime. But if it's just something for the whole group or something like that, then you're welcome to ask those questions and we'll address them at this meeting. You may have noticed in your workspace there is a new bulletin board that we have decorated for you guys. So with your monthly self-assessment, you will get to brag about all of your goals that you've met, any accomplishments you've achieved, anything like that. And every month the management team is going to pick one of those accomplishments, maybe two if they're really, really good, and they will be awarded at the monthly meeting with you will tell everybody about your cool accomplishment. In addition to all of that, your name and your accomplishment will go on the accomplishment wall, and the winners will receive prizes and, again, an opportunity to brag a little bit about the things that you've done. Social awareness is the ability to understand the emotions of others and treat others according to their emotional reactions. So everybody has emotions. Sometimes we can control them, sometimes we can't. Things happen, but we should all be aware of our emotions and acknowledge that they do exist. And that not only do our emotions exist, but other people around us have emotions and they also exist. A big part of our social awareness is biases. We all have biases. Most of them are unconscious. We aren't aware of them. That makes them very difficult to completely eliminate because sometimes we have a bias we don't even know we have. We can try to minimize them as much as we can and try to remain unbiased, but in reality, nobody is truly unbiased. So you just have to take everything with a grain of salt and try to eliminate as much bias as you possibly can. There are many types of biases, but we're just going to talk about two today. One is confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is when you seek out information that confirms what you already believe to be true and ignore anything else that proves it wrong. You are, by doing that, defining your opinion based off of incomplete information. And that's not good because you want to have all the information you possibly can before you make an opinion about something. You see this a lot in politics. People don't generally like to be proven wrong, and so they end up having this very crazy confirmation bias where they just completely ignore anything that is the opposite of what they believe. Another type of bias is an egocentric bias. This is a very hard one to tackle. An egocentric bias is when you view the world as yourself being the most unbiased. Now, just basic logic, we know that that can't possibly be true. We can all be the least biased person. But like anything else, it's very easy to see biases in other people. To take an extreme, you can definitely tell when somebody is racist or sexist. That's very easy to see, but for them, it may not be so easy to see because that's just how they think. You don't necessarily see yourself as having a bias, but we can tackle that by listening when other people say things about our biases. You can become aware of a bias that you may not have realized you had. Biases affect all of us and have a huge impact on decision making. It can, as much as with confirmation bias, impact what information you're taking into consideration when you're making a decision. If you were like, I know I am going to buy a Ford F-150 because it is the best vehicle, you're going to probably ignore any kind of review that says that a Ford F-150 is maybe not the best car, not the worst car, but maybe not the best car. And you're going to probably go with any kind of review that says the Ford F-150 is the best car I've ever had. It is the best car. It's just kind of a confirmation bias. In order to make the most informed decisions and the best decisions we can, we need to try to minimize those biases as much as we possibly can. The fourth aspect of emotional intelligence that we're going to talk about today is relationship management. Relationships are complicated. We all know this, especially in the workplace. You have colleagues here that you maybe wouldn't have chosen to be your friends otherwise. But in order to foster a successful work environment, you must develop healthy professional relationships with all of your coworkers. Healthy working relationships help maintain an ethical work environment where there is no favoritism for one employee over the other, and it also creates an environment where constructive criticism can be made to improve the team as a whole and not to take an individual down. Because we have all had those people who are not really your manager but like to tell you what to do. We've all met those people, and that's not a super healthy work relationship, is it? Now you can give advice to people without being condescending. We know that too. But yeah, of course, a healthy work environment is called a culture of care. That's the glittery word that we like to use. A culture of care is simply a teamwork environment where we all thrive when we make the team better as a whole. In order to do this, the first step is to know your team. Know your team's strengths and weaknesses. What are they sensitive about? What do they like? Any information you can gather about your teammates is going to help you initiate healthy communication and have a healthy relationship with those teammates. To use myself as an example, I'm very sensitive to people touching me. If you greet me with a hug or by touching me on the shoulder, I am not likely to respond very well to that. And I may check out of whatever you have to say before you've even said it. Now, luckily, this doesn't happen in the workplace too often, but the person who greets me this way likely doesn't intend to offend me. That's not, an innate part of that action. But knowing that information may lead to better communication moving forward if they know, hey, she's a lot more likely to talk to me and help me out if I just don't give her a hug first. She's not going to check out of this conversation immediately. The next step is to value input. Understanding that other people have a different set of life circumstances that give them ideas that may be different and sometimes better, sometimes not, than the ones you can produce. This doesn't make you a less of a person. This doesn't mean you're not smart. It just means we're different. And you should value input from others because they may have a good idea that you could use. When you value input from others, both of you walk away better than you did before. Think of constructive criticism. If I walk up to you, I'm very good at Excel. I know a lot of people are, but some people aren't. And I see your hand putting in numbers in a spreadsheet. And I'm like, hey, you do you. If that's how you want to do your spreadsheet, that's the more power to you. But let me teach you this fun little trick where you can just drag and it will do all of the numbers for you. Now, I'm not saying you're dumb. You may have just not known that small piece of information. And now that you know that, you've made your life a little bit more efficient than you were before, right? Finally, the last step of creating a culture of care is to celebrate successes. And we've already kind of started to do that with the achievement wall. When one of us wins, we all win. And we should celebrate successes amongst ourselves as if they were our own accomplishments. Because again, when the team thrives, so do we. Now, we've been talking about emotional intelligence, but what is emotional intelligence? Well, emotional intelligence is defined as the ability to understand and manage your own emotions, as well as recognize and influence the emotions of those around you. Now, what does that mean for the workplace? That may mean something different in your social life than it does here, but we interact with many different people, especially if you've ever answered the phone. You know, there's a lot of people out there that could call us. Plus, there's all the people in the office. We interact with a lot of different people every single day. And all of those people may or may not be on all different emotional levels. One may be having a really bad day and you say the wrong thing and it's going to set them off. We've all had those days, right? Some people, they're having a great day. You could probably come up and spit on them and they're still going to be fine because sometimes you're just in one of those moods. And part of emotional intelligence is that reading of the room, right? We have all met somebody who does not know how to read the room, right? That person who sees someone crying in the corner and is just trying to ask what's going on when it's like, just read the room. It's not necessary. So there are 4 domains to emotional intelligence, and we're just going to talk about one today. One is self-management. There are 4 competencies that make up that one domain. And so we'll use my example from before. We know I don't like to touch people. I don't like people to touch me. And we'll use that example to kind of demonstrate the 4 competencies that make up the self-management domain of emotional intelligence. The first factor is emotional self-control. If I broke down every time someone touched me in life, I would never get anything done. There's a lot of people who are just huggers and they're going to hug you. Knowing that that's a sensitivity of mine helps me to be able to control my emotions when someone unknowingly violates my comfort level. And this is the first part to being self-managing, is knowing your weaknesses. Okay, so having that emotional self-control, knowing your weaknesses and saying, I just need to keep it together when things like this happen. The second factor is adaptability. Kind of goes with the previous one. When people grate me in a way that's outside of my comfort zone, I have learned to just brush it off. Can I just ignore them every time somebody tries to talk to me and they give me a hug first? Absolutely not. That would not be appropriate in most situations. I must be adaptable, and I must learn to move beyond my discomfort sometimes. The third factor is achievement orientation. Now, this is a little bit of a coping mechanism in this particular situation. So when somebody violates my comfort level, knowing that the task at hand, this has nothing to do with the task at hand, right? This is just an emotional thing that I'm having to deal with. So knowing the task at hand and being able to focus on that instead of whatever emotional distress has happened can help move on to what's at hand. And the final factor is a positive outlook. Knowing that under most circumstances, people do not intend to cause emotional distress upon themselves or anyone else. That's usually not what's happening. When someone tries to greet me with a hug, they're not trying to hurt my feelings. They're not trying to offend me. And that's never my assumption. Usually they either didn't know or forgot. And those are both okay. To approach those kinds of situations knowing that the person talking to you did not mean to cause you distress can help a lot. And that is all for today. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. And D353, that's all, folks.